What's up, you guys? So I am back. I wanted to talk today about it being revealed that Simon scammed his way into permanent residency status in the United States. The court documents were released last night. And if you've been subscribed to this channel for any amount of time, you should know that I love to get into the court documents. And Simon's court documents do not disappoint. They are hilarious to me. So we're going to get into them in this video. But first, if you're watching and you haven't yet subscribed, go ahead and subscribe to this channel. And everyone click the thumbs up button. And if you've ever thought about becoming a content creator, click the link in my description box. I have a link to my content creator bootcamp. 2024 is the year of content creation. It's the year of AI. And we're getting into all of that in my content creator bootcamp. So click the link and join us. All right, you guys. So I did verify these court documents. These are real court documents. I verified them in the federal courts. These are real court documents. Simon Guobadia is suing the director of U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services and the federal director and the Atlanta field director of USCIS. And in these court documents, he's basically making a request to vacate the previous denial of his request for naturalization services. Now, naturalization is different from having like a green card or a permanent residency in the United States. He wants to become a naturalized U.S. citizen. It was previously denied. And in this court record, he's requesting to vacate the denial. Forget about that. Forget about that time you told me no and say yes. That's what's going on in these documents. It says this is the order. This matter appears before the court on respondent's motion to dismiss for the following reasons. The court grants the USCIS motion and dismisses Simon's case. So he lost this case. But I think it's a very interesting court case. His arguments are very interesting to me. So the case arises out of Simon's application for U.S. citizenship and naturalization. The INS department previously denied his application on July 27, 2022. He requested a hearing on this decision and the denial was reaffirmed. So they're denying him for the second time. And the court derives the following facts from his complaint and its attachments. And I know a lot of times people attach so much proof to their court documents, so much proof to their lawsuit, and they're saying your lawsuit and its attachments are denied. Forget what you attached. It's all denied. They say the facts are Simon is a Nigerian citizen. Simon first entered the United States on August 11th, 1982. Now, I looked up his birthday. It says it was 1964. So if that's correct, then he would have been 18 in 1982. And they said he overstayed his visitor visa. However, and in 1985, INS denied his application for adjustment of status. So this is around college age for Simon, which is not unusual for someone around 18, 19, someone from another country to want to enter the U.S., whether they're in college or they're starting their career. He's trying to enter the U.S. as a young man and start whatever it is that he's going to do. And they say he was declared deportable and voluntarily departed from the United States on December 28, 1985. So this would have been when he was around 23. He voluntarily departed. But he re-entered the United States on June 1986. He said, y'all got him messed up. He went home, thought about it, and said, y'all got him messed up. So he came back in June 1986, and Simon again overstayed his 6-month visitor visa. In September 1987, Simon was arrested for bank and credit card fraud and pleaded guilty to a felony offense. So this is why they call Simon a scammer, because he was arrested for bank and credit card fraud and pleaded guilty to a felony offense. He was arrested in January 1989 for unauthorized use of a vehicle and again in May 1990 for fraud. Thereafter, the agency began removal proceedings. In January 1991, Simon committed another felony offense, again, credit card fraud. In April 1991, an immigration judge held a hearing and ordered Simon to be deported. Then on March 4th, 1992, Simon was deported and physically removed from the United States. So they put him on that plane. They put him on that plane and sent him back to his country. Now, before, this is the tricky part. Because there's two Simons. There's two Simons. They say before March 1992 removal, however, on October 24th, 1988, Simon used a different identity to seek temporary resident status under the Special Agricultural Worker Program. He also did not include his criminal history on his SAW application. When his SAW application was approved with these misrepresentations and omissions, he was given a registration card as a temporary resident on July 25th, 1991. So y'all have to keep in mind, two things are happening because there are two Simons. One Simon is getting deported. He was supposed to be deported in March of 1992, but prior to March of 92, the other Simon got his temporary residency application approved. So the second Simon is doing good. The second Simon is becoming a temporary resident. And as part of the SAW immigration benefits, the second Simon's temporary resident status was automatically converted to permanent resident status following the waiting period. So Simon number two made it. Simon number 2 is a permanent resident of the United States. So I've seen comments about people saying he married Fallon or married Portia to become a permanent resident. But that's not the case because he is already. The second Simon is a permanent resident of the United States. Now, he received his permanent residency card on April 27, 1992, 26 days after the first Simon had been deported under his other undisclosed identity. So he has a whole nother name, whole other identity. Simon number 1 was deported 26 days before Simon number 2 was granted permanent residency status. And so, yes, in a way, you could say that he scammed his way into the United States. But for me, I have to be honest with you guys, I'm not really judging him because I feel like the whole immigration process, when it comes to Black people and people of African descent, people with dark skin, the whole thing is a scam. America is a scam for people with dark skin. And so I'm not judging Simon. I'm not judging Simon for trying to scam INS. I can't judge. Now, let's move forward. The documents move forward about 24 years. We go from 1992 to 2016. It says on December 22nd, 2016, Simon applied for naturalization under his second identity. The second one is the good one, and was denied because his temporary resident status was unlawfully granted. Then 4 years later, on December 31st, 2020, Simon filed another application for naturalization. Following an interview with Simon, USCIS again denied Simon's naturalization application. He wants to become a citizen, not just a permanent resident, but a citizen, and it's being denied. USCIS explained that he was ineligible because he had not been lawfully admitted for permanent residence. His temporary resident status, achieved through the SAW program and benefits, had been based on a different identity. It's based on Simon number 2. And disqualifying criminal inadmissibility that was willfully concealed. He didn't put his criminal history on his second identity. So on October 24th, 2022, Simon requested a hearing on this decision, and USCIS reaffirmed the denial of his naturalization application on November 15th, 2022. Now, just last year, on March 13th, 2023, Simon filed the instant complaint in this court and asked the court to vacate the denial. Forget about that. Forget about it. Forget about the denial and remand with instructions to grant his application. Now, I want to get into his argument on why the USCIS should grant his application, because Simon has a lot of nerve. It says Simon first argues that he should be granted naturalization because Immigration Services has not raised any concerns about his permanent resident status for 3 decades. For 30 years, y'all ain't say nothing about his permanent resident status, so y'all shouldn't deny his request for naturalization now. Because it's been 30 years and y'all ain't do nothing. That's his first argument, which to me, I feel like I would try to fly under the radar. If I got into the US as a permanent resident under my second identity, I would just leave it at that. But for some reason, he wants to become a US citizen. And he's saying that for 30 years, y'all didn't say anything about his permanent residency being unlawful. So why y'all saying something now? He says no immigration official has contended that he was anything but a personally lawfully granted permanent resident status. Now, number two, his second argument, he argues that he should not be made to bear the burden of the government's mistakes. Basically saying y'all fell for it and y'all let it go for 30 years. So it's not my problem now. I shouldn't carry the burden of y'all's mistake when y'all fell for my scamming 30 years ago. He argues that the appropriate remedy for these issues regarding his SAW application would have been to terminate his temporary resident status, and he should not be denied naturalization now. So because they didn't terminate his temporary resident status when they felt like he was scamming 30 years ago, they shouldn't punish him now. But the court finds petitioner's arguments to be unpersuasive. They're unpersuasive. The court is not falling for it. They say the court rejects the suggestion that USCIS is at fault for not discovering petitioner's own misrepresentations and omissions. Simon, in essence, asked the court to allow USCIS's previous treatment of his immigration status to ratify his unlawfully obtained permanent residency. The court refuses to do so. They refuse to do so. To be sure, it is petitioner who unquestionably holds the imposed burden of proof. So they're saying it's up to him to prove that he's here legally as a permanent resident, and he can't prove that because he's not here legally as a permanent resident. He's here unlawfully as a permanent resident. They say, moreover, Simon lacked any legal support for his argument that as an operation of law, he achieved lawful, keyword lawful, permanent resident status by the agency not previously having corrected his status. To the contrary, legal authorities suggest that achieving permanent residence through an unlawful means is a basis for denying naturalization. So they are denying his request to become a naturalized U.S. citizen because he's here unlawfully. He's here as a permanent resident unlawfully. Now, the kicker is Simon also argues that the statement in his SAW application, whether fraudulent or not, this is a quote, whether fraudulent or not, cannot be used against him to deny immigration benefits because of confidentiality protections afforded to SAW applications. So because his SAW application is confidential, he's saying it doesn't matter whether his statements were fraudulent or not. And when I tell y'all, it takes a lot of nerve to make a statement like that. It really takes a lot of nerve. But the court concludes that Simon's argument misses the mark. USCIS did not deny Simon's application based on protected information in his SAW application. USCIS denied his application based on its own investigation during his naturalization application process. So it's not going to happen. Conclusion. For the foregoing reasons, the court grants USCIS's motion to dismiss and dismisses Simon's case. Case dismissed. Y'all, Simon is a mess. Simon got a lot of nerve. So he responded on his Instagram to all of this talk about his immigration and naturalization request being denied. He responded on his Instagram. He said, ID can't be no shaky. Happy Sunday. And so I Google translated it. And basically he's saying, I'm camping, not shaking. Like I'm camping, not shaking. Happy Sunday. And he posted himself in his robe. It looks like he's at home or on vacation, wherever he is. Wherever he is, he say he's camping. He's camped out, not shaking. And I think the reason for that is because it doesn't say the court documents. This particular case was about his naturalization. It's a denial for naturalization, but it doesn't say they're going to deport him. So maybe that's why he says he's not shaking, because it doesn't say they're going to deport him. Now, I don't know if that's the next step, if INS is going to take that action, but I kind of wonder the connection between Portia returning to the Real Housewives of Atlanta and Simon's whole legal immigration situation. Like, is she returning because she feels like Simon might be getting deported and she wants that bag back? She wants that old thing back? That's the thought that's in my mind. So I'm going to cover that in another video. But for now, I just want y'all to know what's going on with Simon Guobadia. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think about his immigration situation. As always, thanks for watching.